I'm Greg Hunter. Welcome to USAWatchdog.com. With us, a great mind. He publishes a report. It's some of the best cutting edge information out there. I don't really have him on enough. And when I called him in the pre-interview, one of the first things he brought up was the dollar. And I want to bring this up to show you the Zimbabwe note here. It's $50 trillion. Now, this is not some sort of funny money. This is their actual currency. And you may think this is a big joke, funny, right? It's not funny if you're forced to use this currency. It's awful. And this is part and parcel. This is what David Morgan had brought up, and that's who I have on. David Morgan. He says, "Oh, no, we're not going to cut interest rates. That's not going to happen. They're going to protect the dollar." And I thought, wow, Catherine Austin Fitts says the same thing. David Morgan of the Morgan Report, thank you for joining us today on USAWatchdog.com.
It's great to be with you, Greg. Thank you.
Well, you and Catherine Austin Fitts are basically thinking the same thing. They're not going to cut rates. They are not going to, they're going to defend the dollar and everything else be damned. Explain your way of thinking.
So the value of the dollar has been going down since it was started in 1913. It's worth 2 cents by the Fed's own admission. So how do you make a dollar in the future more valuable? Well, you have a higher interest rate. That's what you do. So if you have a problem and you need the suckers at the end of the game to hold on to the dollar, you have to make it worth their time, worth their effort. And that means you give them an interest rate that will allow them to not to profit or to at least hold on to it. The reason being is that in a debt-based monetary system, it's advertised that the most secure thing you could own is sovereign debt, and the sovereign debt that's the most classic and realized to be the best is the United States dollar. So if you got a 30-year bond, a 10-year note, a treasury bill, it doesn't matter if it's a bill, a note, or a bond, they're all $1 in the future. So to make that available where you would hold on to it, you've got to raise the interest rate. What that does is all the preceding bonds that were issued at a lower interest rate, if they need to be sold, have to be marked to market. So if you have a yield of say 2.5% on the 30-year, you've got to discount that bond until the yield comes back to the current yield, which is, let's say, 4.5%, which means it's very deflation. And so it takes a lot of what could be circulating cash out of the market if these bonds, and some are, of course, being turned in for cash. It also disrupts the balance sheets of the banking system across the board because this sacrosanct, nothing better than the bond, which of course gold's far superior to any bond by any nation state. But regardless, it's considered to be the best. So these bonds are losing value every time interest rates go up. And we get to a point where if you take the extreme, what Paul Volcker did, when there was a currency crisis going on, it only lasted for a few months. Most people that were awake and aware knew that the US dollar had an inflation of around 13%. And the only way you can really stop it is to push an interest rate where the real rate is above the inflation rate, which means if you raised interest rates to 13%, it'd be at par and you're earning nothing. But he put them around 20%. So the real rate was 7 points above the inflation rate, and that killed the markets, destroyed the bond market. I mean, think about the discount you'd have to make on an 8% bond, and now it's 20%. You have to discount that thing very heavily. But it took the gold market down, it took commodities down, it basically stifled the whole marketplace for quite some time. It took a while to wind back. I mean, mortgages were being let out at like 15% interest rates and things like that. Of course, as interest rates worked their way down, people refinanced, of course, at a lower rate. So right now, to keep the dollar going, you've got to make this deal that we're going to keep pushing interest rates up. And of course, the edict is until we get 2% inflation, which is a joke. We're not going to see that again, in my view. But we need to continue the dollar until the new system is initiated. That's the point. Yes, it's about interest rates. That's part of the mechanics of it. The philosophy is we need a dollar in the system as the king when we transition to the new system. Now, there's a debate whether that's true or false. Is it going to be a global currency? Is it going to be a central bank digital currency that's worldwide? Or is it going to be nation states with their own currencies? And that, of course, remains to be determined. I think that the power behind the Fed wants the dollar to survive. They're going to make it survive. They're going to push interest rates as high as necessary until they can transition to the new system.
Ooh, that's good. That's one of your big predictions. That's another thing you're getting ready to write what you think.
Just published in December. I'm going to write the predictions for January. It's always the hardest. I mean, we look at commodities, stocks, the general market currencies, robotics, AI. I mean, it's a task to predict the future. And of course, I'm like anybody else. I'm human, but we do our best.
Yeah, you put out a good product. So this is part of what you're going to be doing in the next few weeks in January, which is another reason why people should probably get the Morgan Report. I don't get any financial compensation from having you on. You're just a smart guy, and this is what you're going to be talking about. Wow, the dollar. This idea that the dollar that they're going to lower interest rates and help everybody out. Forget about that. And
forget about it. Yeah.
And they have a past history of doing this, because what they really did back in 1980 with Paul Volcker was he protected the dollar.
He did.
That's what he did. That's what Paul Volcker really did when they raised interest rates to 20% for the Fed funds rate. Volcker was and they're going to protect the dollar again. That's your prediction for 2023. The Fed will protect the dollar. Forget about the markets, forget about the bond market, the housing market, the stock market. Think about the dollar. They are going to be all hands on deck to protect the dollar, and that means raising rates and keeping them high.
Take the converse. I mean, most of my peer group talks about the pivot, meaning they quit raising interest rates or they get to a level, they pause, and they start to lower them. Anybody that's anybody in the financial markets knows that that's the case. Then you basically destroyed the US dollar. It's done. It's toast. It's over. And what that means is people will get rid of it as fast as they can. All the dollars overseas will come back and be repatriated for anything. Land, Toyotas, or
Fords. You were telling me about the dollar that people think most of the cash is held in the United States. Oh, how contraire. Tell me about how much cash is held outside the United States of America.
Yeah, this is on a previous interview we did, and we talked about the fact that how much physical cash is there, what's base money. And that 60% of all printed physical currency is outside the border of the United States. And the reason for that is twofold. One, it's the reserve currency of the world. And two, it's trusted in areas that continually have currency crises that you don't really read about in the mainstream press, but Argentina has one about every decade. You have Turkey, you've had several across the board, Zimbabwe, as you showed. And what do? They use metal and they use US printed currency. And that's their black market / free market. So the currency of the US dollar is trusted. And as I've said many times, it probably bears repeating, is if you use the extra pyramid as a model of how the crash happens, there's a run to the US dollar before the run to gold. So I am not surprised to see the dollar so high, although it's backed off its recent highs. But there will be whatever is the most trusted, a physical note, especially in third world countries, but any first world or not, will trust the dollar at this point in time. And to keep that trust going, we're going to sweeten the deal. We're just going to keep pushing interest rates up higher and higher. Trust us, trust us, trust us. They're doing it to buy time because everyone at that level knows the system is failing and they've got to do something different. And that something different remains to be determined, but it's most likely China leading the way with a central bank digital currency based on a social credit score where you are tax traced and taught everything that you do. And what I mean by taught is if you're not in a good social credit situation and you speak out against the powers that be, they may freeze your account or not let you buy something you want to buy or let you not travel or all kinds of things. It's the most evil system I've ever thought of as far as these technocrats that have all gotten together and decided how to control our lives down to what we eat, what we wear, how all that stuff could be done on that type of a system.
I find it hard to believe that Jamie Dimon and the rest of the Federal Reserve banks, which are owned by the Federal Reserve is owned by the banks, that they're going to give up their power to China. I don't think so.
Yeah. Yeah,
I
I
mean,
agree.
this is evil hating on evil, right? So central banks
Right.
against central banks now. It's like, oh, whoa, 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 whoa. But we're going to make the Federal Reserve obsolete. No, you're not. No, you are not. That means you would make our U.S. banks obsolete.
Yeah, there's a lot of infighting at the top, I think. I don't think they're all chummy. I think that I think, I really think there's a possibility they'll never will be able to implement this. I know that's what they want. I know what they're striving to do. But, as I keep saying, time will tell. We really don't know yet. And if there is let's just do a real quick thought experiment. Let's say that they can't get their act together. There's too much infighting, or they don't have the right software, or something fails, and there's a cyber war, and Money Center Bank is taken out of the equation, so you don't know what any transactions are doing. They can't be settled. I mean, all these things exist. So let's say they fail. Now what happens? Well, now you have what's called a financial collapse, and everything gets repriced because no one really knows the true price of anything anymore because there's no way to settle. So that stock certificate or electronic stock that you have in your portfolio, it's still there. That company still exists. It still has some value, except you don't have to price it anymore because of the cyber warfare situation. So there's a lot going on, Greg, in this very highly technocratic system that we have, with a lot more warfare going on in cyber warfare than anybody likes to admit. So and I'll be writing about this in the January issue, but I think that we really have to think broadly, widely, and deeply if we're going to think at all about the financial system, because there's more vectors than just interest rates when we talk about the future of money.
Well, let's just go on to your next prediction. I know you're going to talk about real estate. Everybody thinks it's the hottest thing, and yet it's rolled over here recently. And one of the stories that, as we interviewed this past week, you're on Saturday here, but one of the stories that came out just this past week, 450,000 home buyers are underwater as early FHA delinquencies hit 2009 levels. 450,000 home buyers are underwater. It's the worst it's been since what, 2009? And then we've had this huge increase in used car prices. Not anymore. They've fallen back the most on record. Another story that came out this past week. What's going to happen to the housing market and the automobile market in your prediction for 2023?
I think I will answer the question, but I think the more important point is the idea or ideal that all inflations end in deflation. So if you go to Zimbabwe as an example, I mean, you showed us the $50 trillion note. There was the $100 trillion note. I think I've got one in my drawer, not that it matters, but the $100 trillion note never actually made it into circulation.
Oh, wow.
As these were printed, they were in Germany on their way to Zimbabwe, and the currency had failed. Now you're in a deflationary situation. What will you barter with, or what U.S. currency do you have, or what kind of silver necklace do you have? That's where it went. So we are in a situation where we are going to see anything that's on an interest rate is going to come down in price. Now, there'll be exceptions, but what is real estate? Mostly it's mortgages, and it means you're leveraged. You put down a down payment, you borrow the rest from the bank or the mortgage broker, and you make payments. As interest rates go higher, that of course curtails that activity, and interest rates are going higher. So you're going to see more and more damage in the real estate market, in the auto loan market, in the credit card market. Anything that has a loan attached to it or an interest rate attached to it as a debt payment, where you have to service the debt on your house or your car or your whatever, that is going to decrease in value pretty much across the board. That's an easy prediction, really. How bad is real estate going to get? I don't know, but it's probably going to go lower than most people think. What's going to happen in the stock market? As interest rates climb, stocks go down. Historically, it's a very easy equation. They may get a final blast up. The only way I can see stocks going higher and higher and higher, I mean substantially higher, is with a hyperinflationary environment. Because in a hyperinflationary environment, like Zimbabwe or the Weimar Republic, the stock market went crazy. It went up, 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 but it still did not protect you from the devaluation of the currency. It helped, but it didn't cover the decimation in the currency. What did was the precious metals, and that was the only thing that did, to my knowledge. So bad times, not horrible. People adjust. They can downsize. They can sell the house at a, send the keys to the mortgage company. And then
Bad
all
times
this.
if you're not ready. You're going to get creamed if your position's wrong.
Oh yeah.
You're going to get cremated.
Oh yeah. I mean, everyone says, "Oh, I'll borrow a bunch of money and inflation will bail me out." Only if you can guarantee that your employer is going to increase your wages commensurate with the inflation rate or higher.
It won't lay you
That's
off.
not the case. So you really want a debt-free situation, even in an inflationary environment, or probably more accurately, a stagflation that we're experiencing now and will continue to. And again, the Fed's got their fingers crossed, even though they won't admit it, praying that they're going to be able to get this new system implemented before the dollar, people give up on the dollar. I mean, people could give up on the dollar right now because why? The interest rate, although relatively high a few years ago, it's nothing compared to the real inflation. So if you're getting 4 or 5% and the inflation rate's officially 8.5%, John Williams tells us about 17%, where do you have to put interest rates to get a real rate of return? Very high. And you can't get it that high because if it was that high, you can't even have enough money to pay the interest on the national debt.
Well, I think you're right. I think the Fed is not there. People are there. I mean, I see this every couple of weeks, between every Fed meeting. Oh, the Fed's going to pivot now, and then Paul comes on and says we're going to get inflation down to the 2% rate. In other words, we're not going to let the dollar die. I mean, am I hearing the wrong thing? Is this some kind of that I'm in some alternative universe that I'm hearing Jay Powell say we're not lowering rates?
Yeah, I think
they're going to raise them.
Told him, keep it going, keep the game going. We need the time. So you didn't ask, but I'd like to comment on food. I mean, food's going to continue to be scarcer and scarcer and more costly and more costly. Get used to living on less. Get used to eating less for most families. I mean, broad stretch of America is paycheck to paycheck. I mean, the country's been decimated in many ways. So is the world. It's not just, I'm not thinking of the USA alone, I'm thinking globally, but I'm also thinking out loud that food, oil, energy is the most important, and you need energy to grow food and to harvest food and to transport food. And food is getting killed as far as production rate, the amount of fertilizer available, who's going to export what, decided not to export because they need it for their own people. There's a lot going on, and you know all this, Greg. I know you've had many guests. I watch everything that you do. But that's probably my easiest prediction is get ready for higher food prices, regardless of these, talking heads that tell you that inflation's coming down and not. You could see inflation down by an efficient number because it's a composite of different things. But everything that we need, which is basically food and energy, is going to continue higher for the foreseeable future. We could get to a point where something breaks or the population is so small that the demand side is cut in half. But it takes something that drastic to really see inflation curtailed in a meaningful way for the next 6 months.
Well, we've got all these. I know you've been watching this, and there's really no stopping this. I mean, I just had Karen Kingston on. We're talking a bioweapon. Forget this vaccine, and yet they're approving another vaccine for children as young as 6 months old. And Congress is worried because they put in the National Defense Authorization Act to stop the vax mandate with the military. So they're looking for some cover. Of course, they were all exempted from this great, wonderful medical advancement. But Catherine Austin-Fitts came on here, and and she didn't really need to say that. She's a very compassionate woman, and she's very smart. I don't mean to sound cruel or morbid. I don't think that's exactly what she said. But she said there's a big deflationary component with the outcome of these vaccines.
Sure.
I mean, every week you're seeing a 5-year-old die, an 18-year-old. Celine Dion, who pushed the vaccine, now has some incurable disease. right?
Right.
I mean, is there a deflationary aspect that you're going to talk about in your upcoming 2023 thing about what the effects of these vacs might do? You won't need all these
Yeah,
cars. You won't need all these houses.
that's right. Well, it's in my
You'll
head
need
now.
less.
Not out on paper, but yeah, you got the general theme was all inflation leads to deflation. That will be the title of it, of that section of the report. And I'll go through different scenarios that are highly probable on what that means. And you've outlined it beautifully, Greg. It's less people is just, demand destruction. I want to digress for just a minute. I remember, in business school, and I'm just so pumped up. I loved it. I love finance, and something really kind of hurt me a little, and that was that the best way for the bottom line to go from red to black to fire employees. And I never thought of it. I have a pretty good heart. I'm thinking, but that's it. The most efficient, direct way, you are not making money in your corporation. You're making widgets. We say that in business school, widget. And you got to get it under control. Fire people. Get rid of them. And so if you fire people and they leave, then there's less demand. So let's just, as a thought experiment, just say that 50% is removed. Would you have an oil crisis then? Would you have a food crisis then? Well, of course not.
Wow. This is going to be a good article. I know you're going to put a lot more into it than what you're talking right now. I know you are.
Oh,
you already got a bunch of stuff. That's fine. This is just a preview of this. It's going to be a big deal for you, for the Morgan Report. But I want to talk about something that works both great, and I know you know this because you're the silver guru. You've written. I wish I had my book. You still sell your silver manifesto, right?
Yeah, I've got about 500 left, and I'm going to do it until they're done, and I'm not going to republish it. I mean...
Oh, it's a great book. Oh, it's a fan... I'm sorry I don't have it right here in front of me. It's on your website, right? TheMorganReport.com?
Well, once I sell the last one, and silver's at 35, 45, 50...
Oh, then you're going to do another edition. You're going to have to update it.
Then I have to go to Amazon and pay $300 for it.
That's right. But so I'm going to make sure that... So you're going to give me a link for that, the Silver Manifesto.
I will, yeah.
I'm telling you,
it's a nice Christmas gift for a silver now.
It's a beautiful book. I can't get it up right now, but it's a beautiful. You have a copy of it? Hold it up.
Oh,
come on.
I had one. I gave it to my piano teacher yesterday.
Oh, so, okay. You know what? I'm going to do something I never do. I'm not going to edit this out. Just stay right there. Don't go. Stay right there. Don't go away. Yes, I have pants on. Hold on. I got it right here. Oh, come on. Oh, I got it. Yeah, baby. I'm coming back. We're just going to leave it. This is just unedited programming. Hold on. I should have had this. So I am sorry. I'm going to scold myself for not having it because I think it's a wonderful book. It's wonderfully done. And it's a beautiful... Here. Boing. Right here. The Silver Manifesto. It is a lovely book. It's on your website. I don't make anything on this, but you gave me a copy a long time ago. Everything in here is just as relevant today as the day you did it, the Silver Manifesto. It's a fabulous book. And you only have 500 left, you're right. Now that's going to be a collector's edition. Which leads us right into silver.
Yep.
And a lot of people say, and I had this every weekend, I just did a little dive here today. And a lot of people say, well, how come silver's only $23 an ounce? We talked about, I want to get into this mining cost, and you go all the mines and talk to the CFOs and the CEOs and all this. You do this with your.
I make my living. We visit the mines.
All right. Hold on. So why is silver? What's going on with silver? And I looked up Kitco, and it's showing the day we do this about $23 an ounce for spot. And you go on a Kitco, and you can't buy a Silver Eagle for less than $41, almost 100% over spot. What the hell is going on? What is the real price of silver? Because we all know it's not $23 an ounce. What is the real price of silver? Is it what you can get for it? Is it really $40 for an Eagle? For one of these Buffalo rounds, add another $8-10 on top of that? So it's $33 an ounce. What's the real price of silver? Explain what the hell is going on in the silver market, because you are an expert in many things, including silver. What's going on with silver?
Well, there's a lot to unpack, so let me begin. So the $23 price, and the silver market, you must remember, the silver market is actually derivatives.
Yeah,
And the
hold
silver
on.
market is
You're frozen here, so I'm hoping you're going to come back, but go ahead. The silver market is actually a derivatives market. Go ahead.
yeah, and in that you're buying a future to buy or sell a given amount of silver at a certain price at a certain time. That's the market. Underneath that market is the physical market, and in the silver market, that's commercial bars. Commercial bars are rough poured, 1,000 ounces, give or take. And they never, very seldom come out exactly 1,000. They come out close to it. The exact weight in troy ounces is stamped, literally stamped with a press or a tool into the bar. 999 fine. The mint mark is on there, and that's what the silver market is. So the silver market at 23, if you were going to buy silver off the exchange, you would pay roughly that amount. You'd pay a little insurance, a little storage until the paperwork came, and then you'd pay the transportation. But you would get a block of commercial bar silver around the 23. Now let's go up from there and talk about the coin market. Now there's one caveat in the coin market I want to talk about before I go on and explain why $41 exists, and I will. And that is this information that's been accurate for a while, but it's been inaccurate for 13 years. And that is that the edict that the mint, the United States Mint, is required to produce as many silver eagles as the demand of the public exists. And that was true, past tense. But there was a bill in 2010, 13 years ago, at the request of the United States Mint, a bill with a legislative fix for a problem was introduced as the quote-unquote Coin Modernization Oversight and Continuity Act 2010, end quote. Public law is 111-302 and was signed into law with Obama's signature. And it was signed into law almost exactly a year, 13 years ago. It was signed into law December 14th, 2010. And what that says is, under the act, the previous requirement related to the issuance of American silver eagles were changed. Can I say that again, Greg? That you have to, the public's demand has to be met by the mint? No, it was changed in 2010. The new requirements called for the Secretary of the Treasury, Grandma Yellen today, to strike the coins in both quantities and qualities that the Secretary determined to be sufficient to meet public demand. So it's all in Janet Yellen's hand, according to the law. The Secretary of the Treasury is the one that determines what the correct amount is. The purpose of the change was to allow proof silver eagles to be produced even when times of bullion coins were not being minted in quantities needed to satisfy full public demand, which is complete, total, and absolute BS. But that's how they, or that's how they just.
So wait. Well, what you're saying is now because Yellen basically restricts the amount of silver eagles, a silver eagle is a quasi rare coin. Is that what you're telling me?
Yeah, it's gotten to rare coin status, but I want to go deep on that question. So the mint requires a blank to press out a silver eagle, and those blanks are bought from different entities. The primary one for years and years was the Sunshine Mint. And I did an interview with Tom Power, who I've known for years, brought him on Wall Street Silver. We did kind of a three-way, the Wall Street Silver guys, myself, and Tom Power, the CEO of Sunshine Mint. And Tom explained that they are not producing as many blanks for the mint that they used to. And it all started around the COVID timeframe. So you can't produce what you don't have material to do. So the mint does not produce their own planchettes, fancy name, or blanks. They used to way back in the beginning. They don't anymore. So they're kind of held back based on the other suppliers. Can they give them enough blanks? But here's the thing that most people don't understand. There's only about 10 authorized participants that buy silver eagles from the mint. And to this day, Greg, they pay the cost, the current cost, which means spot price, more or less, plus $2.95. That's what they pay. So the mint isn't ripping off anybody. The mint is selling them like they always have, at a modest premium to the few that qualify to be an authorized participant. And that's $2.95 at the current time. It varies for a silver eagle. So if silver's at 23, at 3, they're paying 26. Now the APs, the wholesaler that own all those silver eagles, they wholesale them to like Miles Franklin, and maybe they'll put a $10 premium on.
Wow.
So Miles Franklin's getting them at 26 plus 10 is 36. Well, if Miles Franklin's buying them at 36, he's not making a dime. So if he pays
so people like Kitco have to
41 for
they
him
have
to
to
make a profit. Otherwise, he's out of business selling eagles.
and they're paying for it because that's what they can get for it. That's what
correct.
the demand is. That's what they can get for it, and that's the real price. And so do you think silver in general is going to go? I mean, the real price is 23. No, it's not. You can't. I just go to Kitco or anywhere else. You got to pay 39, 40, 41, 42. That's the cheapest price Kitco's selling it for. Really, if you go down here and buy one, they're showing on the day we're doing this interview $42. So it's almost 100% markup over what the fake controlled spot price is. Do you think this is the run to the dollar and also to gold and silver right now? Because if you wanted to buy silver eagles, the boat is already pulled away from the shore.
Yeah, I've been saying for probably the last 6 months that the run to gold has begun. And I'm pretty much vindicated on that because I think it was in the last week or so, there's been a couple articles out that the banks hold more gold today than they have since like 1975. Well, that's kind of a proof of what I said. The run to gold has begun.
6 months ago.
So who's running? Well, the banks are running. Why? Because gold is the money of last resort. I want to digress because this is imperatively important.
Wait, hold on. Before you digress, hold on just a minute. But you said this, the run to gold began. You said that 6 months ago.
Yeah.
Another reason why you should be hooked up to the Morgan Report, but go ahead, you digress. So go ahead, you make this point, go ahead.
So there could be, the banks all know that gold is the money of last resort. So let's say that their plan A to go to a central bank digital currency doesn't work, or they can't do it, or they get squeezed for time, they got to do something. Well, they could always go back and remonetize gold. And they have that ability because they have it. And all they have to do is reprice it. All they have to do is really mark to market. They mark to market a lot of things. Bond markets, if you're going to sell them, have to be marked to market, but they can't sell them. So you could mark to market what the market price of gold is, or the Treasury could set it, or a nation state could set it. So they have that ability, and I consider it their last resort, but they may end up doing it. I'm not of the ilk of many of my peers that say that the next system is going to be a precious metals-based system. I hope it is. That's my life's dream, that it is, but I doubt it. I think the bankers still want control. I think they want this technocratic system where they can tax, trace, and test everything.
But the price of gold and silver, in your mind, have got to go up, no matter what the system is.
No matter what, yeah,
it's going up. Even if we have this deflation, a lot of people think, well, if you have deflation, then the price of gold and silver will go down. And I've heard this before, and I think you've said it before. Oh no, how contrary! No, it works good in the extremes. Explain that.
Yeah, it's a crisis hedge. It's an anti-government disc of shining element. First of all, The Golden Constant is probably the best book ever written on a long-term study of gold. When Professor Jastrom wrote that book, he said that gold works best in a deflation. Period. End of talk.
Wow.
You look at it from the 13th century to about 1960 or so. Thereabouts.
Wow. Gold works better when debt is being destroyed. That's deflation. So, and gold doesn't, of course, you can't destroy it, right? You cannot destroy it. Wow. And silver's along for the ride at that point, right?
Gold, he wrote, after he did that book, he said, well, what's silver do? And he wrote a second book called Silver, the Restless Metal. And it varies with silver. Sometimes it acts like gold, sometimes it does not in past history. This time it will because it's a technological requirement. 10% of the silver market is solar panels right now.
Wow.
And the word money and the word silver is synonymous in 14 languages. And you don't have any big arguments about silver being money in Asia, in any of the South American countries, in parts of Europe. It's only like the US of A, Canada, oh no, it's just a metal, I mean, the money houses always downplay it, but not the people. Look at India. I mean, the Indians know not to trust their government script. They've known that from the day they're born. So they save in silver, and since they've been richer and richer, they've started to save in gold for the average person, and that's great for them. But they all own precious metals as the money of last resort, and they only use it when they have to.
Gold and silver much higher at the end of 23 than now.
Yes.
Wow. War. What is it good for? Huh, absolutely nothing. Say it again.
Yeah.
We're going to have war in Ukraine. They can't stop funneling this. It's just outrageous. People are like, oh, I stand with Ukraine. If you stand with Ukraine, you would stop General Surovikin, who I call Darth Vader, from the Russian general, from destroying Ukraine. It's being destroyed. Them saying, oh, they're winning is a total BS. And I think it might get to a wider war. Do you think we're going to have bigger war in 2023? Are you writing about that? What's your handicap on war?
Well, that's a tough one. I will write about it. I wrote about it in the March issue of the Morning Report, and I did a much different take than almost everybody else. First thing, I don't think we did an interview on it. Regardless, I wrote all wars are bankers' wars. So that's number one. Did we do an interview on that?
No, we did not.
Okay. So all wars are bankers' wars. That's premise number one. Number two is the first thing that you lose in war is the truth. And the last thing is, if you want to be objective about a war or anything, the best thing to do is follow the money. So if you follow the money, what you find out is Ukraine is the biggest money laundering factory on the planet and has been for a very long time. I mean, all you have to do is look at the political class and observe what they're doing objectively and tell the truth. And the truth is Pelosi's kid, Kerry's kid, the guy from Utah, his son, and of course Biden are all getting these massive salaries out of Ukraine.
Anyway, FTX was supposedly getting money back from Ukraine after Biden gave it to the Ukrainians, and they were funneling it back to FTX, and they were financing a big chunk of the 2022 midterms, which is why you had these, Fetterman and Dr. Oz, $343 million spent on one race. Where'd they get that money? But go ahead.
So the money laundering gimme is something that they have to protect. I mean, people on the take defend Ukraine, baby. They don't want to cut off their money laundering spigot. I mean, come on. Money makes the world go round. And it does, especially in politics. I mean, money is power. Most people can be bought. You know my basic premises. They're true. And this is something that, and it's not just the Democrats. I mean, let's be realistic. I've said for years, since I was about 18, I thought that there's a left wing and a right wing that's on the same damn bird, and the bird's flying at a different speed depending on who's in power, but it's still the same group moving the direction they want to move. Politics, as Eleanor Roosevelt said, very little happens by accident in politics. It's all contrived. They're there for stage theater. Oh yeah, there's some good laws passed. I don't want to sound too negative, but the basic truth of it is the political class is really at the bottom of the pyramid. I did this lecture at the Red Pill Expo, and I don't want to digress too far, Greg, but the truth is Ukraine stinks to high heaven. But the question you asked is it going to escalate? And the answer is yes. It's a banker's war. The bigger the war gets, the more money they make. They don't care about us. They don't care about who gets killed. They have no ideology other than greed. And, if they're willing to give a magic potion to the population at large on a global basis and watch them fall over, they certainly aren't going to give a darn if they do it in a conventional way, Cold War.
Boy, howdy. Woo! Woo! Gold, silver, interest rates, food, war. You've covered a bunch of points. I know you have a bunch more, and this is why people should just sign up now for the Morgan Reports, which I do not get anything. We're not in business together, but I just do this as courtesy. You also have your book, which is the Silver Manifesto, that is going to be on your website. It's only 500 left. That's wild. You've had multiple reprint printings of it. It's a very popular book.
Not really. I mean, it's been the first book I wrote was Skinny on Silver Investing. I think we sold somewhere in like the 12,000 range. On the Silver Manifesto, I mean, that's my opus. I mean, that thing is a classic forever. It's not a piece on timing the market. But no, there's been about 3,000 printed, and I've got 500 left. So it's a very small run. Yeah.
Well, you know what? It's. I think it'll be a. It's even if it's not a collector's edition. It's not you're buying it for the value. You buy the value of what the book is going to be. 10 years from now. It's packed with everything you'd ever want to know about silver. And I think silver is going to be the metal of the future because all this technology, which is increasing, a lot of it runs on silver. And like you said, just solar panels is 10% silver. And so the direction of silver, like you said, with gold, sometimes it doesn't correlate. But in this case, because of all the technology, it certainly will. Silver, the Silver Manifesto. How do people get involved in the Morgan Report? Tell me about that.
Sure, just go to the main website and sign up for the free letter, of course. And if you're interested in subscribing, I'm running a special, Black Friday special, and I'm going to the end of the year. And I'm knocking off a substantial discount from the regular price, and you get a free consultation with me, not one of my staff, me. So you get to talk to me so I can basically hone in on what you need, what your desires are, what your realistic goals are, and have a one-on-one with me and get started off on the right foot on the Morgan Report starting from the time you sign up.
Wow. David,
and that's available. Yeah, it's available. Sorry, it's available at silver123.net. So you type into your browser silver, the number 1, the number 2, the number 3.net. It should pop up. There's a brief video that explains everything. Once you buy it, you will get a software called Calendar. You'll pick the time that you can, talk to me.
Yeah. David, the morganreport.com is where we go to first. There are some free information articles on the morganreport.com.
On the blog, I mean, I have worked my off for years to bring free information to the public at large, and I'll still continue to do it because my dream is to put the power of money back into people's hands. And the way to really do that is make sure everybody on the planet has an ounce of silver. Since there's only 4 billion ounces of silver in investment form and 8 billion people, that comes down to about a half an ounce each. And if you did it in gold, there's about an ounce each. So you tell me which one's the most valuable.
Wow. Okay, David Morgan, the Morgan Report. And after the interview section, we will put in, of course, links to the Morgan Report before and after the video. Also, the sign-up page for the Morgan Report will also be in there. And really, thanks a lot for coming on and taking us to school and giving us your preview for 2023.
And don't forget to talk to Janet Yellen. Tell her we want more silver eagles.
That's good. A nice comedy. A nice, funny point. It's almost becoming a collector's edition. That's kind of weird.
Here they are. I mean, and to go on that just for a second, there are certain low mintage coins that if you want to buy them, regardless of the price of silver, you pay a collector's premium.
One of them is a 1995 or 96. You would know this.
One of those. I think the first year, the 86 is pretty low mintage. I have a collection. I have one of them every year.
Oh, wow.
And there are years that you have to pay up to get them because there's such a low mintage. They are basically collectible.
2022, is that going to turn into one of these years, 2022, if you get your hands on it?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, the mintage is so low relative to what it's been the previous years where we're minting 35, 40 million eagles a year. I mean, when the program started, 10 million, 12 million, or 20 million.
I heard they're minting like a million maybe.
Don't know the numbers. I'm not that close to the mint.
But a lot less than what they've done in the past.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, I would not be surprised to see it end in 2023. I'm not going to write that report, but it goes to 2025, the way things are going, I'd kind of be surprised.
Wait, what ends in 2023?
The Silver Eagle program.
Oh, the Silver
No,
Eagle.
I'm not in 2023, but over the next few years, I think it could end.
Wow. Silver and gold eagles could end?
I don't think they'd quit gold. They don't have the supply.
But silver eagles may. Wow, that's a pretty big headline. You think the minting of silver eagles by the
2023? Yeah, what they do is they probably do proof coins still. You know, so the proof coins are collector coins, but the basic bullion coins are turning into collector coins because the mintage is so low. And the planchette for the proof coin and the planchette for the bullion coin is the same planchette. They're at a very high standard, beyond what most mints use. But the mint, U.S. mint, requires a silver blank that's highly polished, that's capable of making a proof coin, and nothing else. So when they run a bullion coin through the press or a proof coin through the press, it's the same blank that's used.
Huh, wow, didn't know that. David Morgan of themorganreport.com. David Morgan, the links for the website, the links for the sign-up page will all be on there. The link for the book will be on there as well. David Morgan, thanks for joining us today on USAWatchdog.com.
Thank you, Greg.